Testing 1, 2. So we're fast moving towards our test next Thursday. And I've decided we'll do it as a weekend test. So you can take it Friday, starting 12:01 in the morning up till 11:59 on a Sunday night. So we won't lose a class period for this. It will be chapters 6, 7, 8 with a little bit of 9. This will be on retailing, wholesaling structures and strategies, and then some of the new emerging things. So this will be a totally online test. It'll be a little bit different, like the first test. It'll be 30 questions, multiple guests for each of the chapters. There will be 5 essay questions of which, 5 essay questions, and you have to answer them all. Total of 100 points. I will have them graded and ready by the time next Tuesday. I will have all of the videos up no later than Thursday afternoon, so you can use those for studying. Yes. Cool. So Thursday will be next Thursday will be a normal classroom time. You have a chance to talk to me about things from Friday morning till Sunday night. But once you start taking the test, you have 75 minutes to complete it. Okay? All right. All right. Very good. Okay. I wanted to come back and talk about the functions of wholesaling just for a minute, because there was another discussion part that I wanted to make sure that you knew of. Okay. So when we're talking about the functions of wholesalers, one of the things that I talked about is that they many times do the same work as manufacturers do. And I also wanted to make sure that I also talked about this and their ability to be able to do other things such as actually manufacture a product. All right. So what this means is that as a retailer, they, in essence, can transform a particular good that I need for my resale, and in essence, do the function just as a manufacturer could. So one of the things wholesalers do is they build to order. Many times, just like a manufacturer does. They will customize a particular piece of equipment and postpone the final step that you would normally do for a retailer, or that a retailer would do that final step, but they will carry it to that limit. And they will allow you to finish the product yourself. So I talked about my experiences with Hewlett Packard, how in dual distribution, they were in essence a competitor against me when I went to the Women and Children's Hospital in Lafayette. They in essence, their ability as an impartial partner was no longer valid, and we were looking to do something else. So the owners of the computer store that I worked with decided to start putting together their own computers. And so anybody who's done gaming, I have a game PC myself, machine parts that I put together. I actually found a company that would take all the parts that I was looking for at discount prices and put it together for me and test a 200-hour burn-in for only $99. And that was part of the discount or part of the guarantee I got. Who wouldn't do that? If anybody's put together machines, you know what a pain it can be to do that. Well, anyway, we were looking to come out with our own brand. And since we were living in Lafayette, the owner came up with the Cajun PC, and the logo was a crawfish. And I was leaving to go do something else at the time, but he carried through on this. We found a dealer in Houston who was a wholesaler who would put the machines together to 90% and allow us to put the hard drives in and the video cards, which are usually customized if people want. And we did quite well. This is a process that's known as kitting, K-I-T-T-I-N-G. Kitting. And this is basically putting together the parts in an assembly and holding back that last step. Worked great. Worked exactly as we wished. It was successful up to the point where when I had left, I had heard that they had moved away from that and were doing their own software. So what I want you to get from this basically is that wholesalers act as if they are manufacturers in that they will perform the same functions that manufacturers do. Kitting transforms the goods into a unique part, and that is the function of a manufacturer. Okay, I just wanted to make that last point. So one of the difficulties, or one of the things that we noted when we first started talking about wholesaling, is that wholesaling has been through a wave of consolidation. And that wholesalers in the traditional sense used to be small, and there's still many out there that are like that, but they tended to be independent. But the modern world of wholesalers are large. They're sophisticated, capital-intensive corporations. When you look at the nature of what intermediaries do, in that they consolidate orders, they take advantages of the economies of scale, invest in high technology. All of those things basically point to a better, or let's just say a more efficient model when it comes to actually satisfying consumers. If I am a downstream wholesaler who is looking to be, or let's just say, who has been pursued by other wholesalers, who's living through this wave of consolidation, it becomes very difficult to be able to consider what we think, or how do we choose the winners is basically the problem, okay? As they consolidate, there's a different way of trying to determine who's going to be the leader, because we don't simply want to consolidate with a loser. We want to be able to succeed. And so there are 4 strategies for the consolidation wave. And the first is pick a winner. The first thing that you can try to do is predict which of the wholesalers is going to be left standing and build a partnership with them. And so how do we identify the winners? There are those corporations that are in the business to consolidate. They are catalysts. They move rapidly to acquire other corporations. And a matter of fact, that is their marketing objective, to acquire more firms. Many times, it is not about acquiring technology. It could be simply to acquire the customer base. So when I was in internet service providership, I started an ISP in 2000. And one of the things that this is back in dial-up internet. And for about 3 years, there was rapid growth on using the interrupt when I'm simply talking about dial-up. It was a different era then, but just to be able to get on the internet was something of a unique position. 2004, Walmart came along and came out with $4.95 internet when I was charging $17.95 a month for that. I lost 3,000 customers just right off the bat in a series of about 3 to 4 months. I started looking to be able to find a parachute to get out of the business because I knew I wasn't going to survive. What I found is that the catalyst corporations then didn't care about the equipment I had. They didn't care about the phone lines I had. All they wanted was my customer base. And they were willing to pay $80 to $120 a customer. That's all they cared about. I was able to get out reasonably with a little bit of my skin. There was a little difficulty I had with AT&T, which I'll talk about when we talk about conflict and power. But otherwise, I survived with my skin. That's why I'm here. So catalyst firms, their position and their strength is all about acquiring other firms. First mover advantage is a great thing until it isn't. First mover advantage, especially when it comes to building new technology, allows you to set the standards that everybody else has to work by. However, rarely do I know of any first mover that came in and lasted through the shakeup period. Microsoft didn't get around into the internet actually until about 4 years after the internet started becoming big, and they started with their internet browser. AE, what was it? I can't remember. Wow, it's been that long. Anyway, wholesalers that enter late after the consolidation has progressed has stayed out of the central fight. they've been able to see the mistakes that others have made. And hopefully they've succeeded and survived. Microsoft became big. Then, well, I guess what happens? Microsoft makes their own mistakes, does not take advantage of the iPad and the the mobile phone generation, and now they're playing catch up. And so wholesalers that enter late generally do so because they've survived and seen all of the errors that have happened and hopefully won't make them. Not only that, but generally when you're going through the consolidation wave, you find many times that you undervalue or underprice your own assets. And so you're coming out, if you've survived, you're creeping along because you've been beaten up pretty much. This is what's happened really with Motorola and Razor. They're just haven't made it. Then there are what are known as extreme specialists. They understand it. They have the dirt under their fingernails. They are attuned to the conditions that prevail after consolidation, and they focus on just one single part of an overall larger scope. I would look at Spotify as being one of those. When you consider how the internet has progressed with the sharing of songs, I thought Apple did an outstanding job when they came out. I can't even remember it now. Their sharing system. The first year they came out, Apple made $1 billion off it, cleared it. It was the #1 selling item that they had in terms of pure profit. Here they are now. But Spotify is one of those that has been able to focus on that and do it as well. And then finally, the complete opposite is the extreme generalist. These are like standard office supply. I would also think of Sears, but you don't know Sears. But these are organizations which have hundreds of thousands of millions of different lines or different services or different industries that they're in. I would certainly think of Amazon in this. They got their fingers in everything, you know, from selling of goods to the production of shows, to the distribution of them. They just have their fingers everywhere and are looking for some way to spend their money. I don't think this was Apple's best territory. I thought when they got Beats, I thought that was a very interesting thing because Apple rarely buys anything outside of their own production facility. And so that kind of surprised me. Not that this is true, but when I saw them buy Beats, there's a part of me that said there's a little bit of the magic that's lost to Apple, because if it would have been during Steve Jobs' time, they'd have taken Beats and they'd have done something unique and better, my own opinion. So the first is choose the winners, and this is the way you do it. The second, you invest in fragmentation. You don't try to rule the world, just you're a part of it. So what you do is you focus in your particular wholesale on one very unique special industry that you have both intellectual capital and physical capital in which you can exploit, and you stay in that lane and you don't cross over. So I talked about Moody Price on Thursday as a corporation that has taken generic manufacturing goods and focused them on the petroleum industry. And they do that very well. I would be really concerned if Moody Price started reaching out to the hospital industry, because they're a heavy industry as well. I don't think that's their best place. The third is a wholesaler if I'm facing consolidation and I have the technical expertise, I understand the particular channels there. I am not worried about performance ambiguity. I understand the pathway to success. And what I'll do is I integrate forward. I, in essence, take my specialties and I go straight down to the consumer. I bypass retail. I might have retail store, I shouldn't say that. But what I do is it becomes my industry. Those two, second and third, are incumbent on having strong capital assets. You can take a punch as much as you can give one. Do not mind crossing sharp elbows with the competition, because in the long run, you feel like you're going to win. The first and the fourth, the last one is quite simply if you do not feel you're going to survive the consolidation wave. And so what you do is you increase your own attractiveness. You try to offer benefits. And you hope to do either one or two things. One, that a wholesaler deems you to have sufficient strength and assets to come buy you. Or if you're successful enough to invest in a strong brand name, then that will carry its own benefits all the way down the line. It means that when you go downstream and you're talking to the resellers, that you provide them with some valuable particular piece of skill or expertise or product that is not readily available to the remaining ones. Has anyone ever seen quick connects on a fire hose? Okay, so fire hoses are generally bronze. They don't have a screw type connection, but what they have are these giant ears on both sides of the connection, and it's like a small oval. So all you have to do to connect is you slam in the hose, shut it like this, and it'll hold up to 300 PSI. It's a very unique technology. Swedge Lock, when they came out with it, had a lot of fighting necessarily because screw connections had been around forever. But Swedge Lock had one also advantage in their speed in that they came out during World War II. And what that meant was, especially during World War II, and especially when those couplings were needed, especially for fueling large ships or being able to do things as being able to get boats away from ships so that they can land on shore efficiently, effectively, that gave them such a unique capability that they, in essence, took over. They're especially good on hoses that are 2 to 6 inches in diameter, all right? It's just trying to twist, you have no idea. Anyway, so how do you increase your attractiveness? Usually by doing something that no one else can do. And so, what are the trends in wholesaling? Where is wholesaling going in the future? Well, as I said before, retailing is growing globally. There's no way to hold it back. We have some very good things happening. First, all that you have is that you're having developing nations open up as well. We're also having the ability to trade with partners all across the world. And because it's retailing in its way, the transactions that happen anywhere are the same across the world. Wholesaling is a little different. Wholesaler retailers are large, but very seldom global. even though cross-border shippings are relatively inexpensive, and trade barriers the dropping of them include expansion. Most wholesalers never go. Reason why, as I've said before, is that their assets are at a very generally unique to the area in which the wholesalers are built around. Moody Price is a wholesale industry in petroleum, does not extend itself even to the Gulf or into South America. Doesn't. Because the other thing is that the manufacturers that they work with tend to be in the United States as well. Second is it requires an expertise in those particular companies, or excuse me, countries, that is generally not portable. If wholesalers succeed in overseas, they generally succeed because they have a strong global partner. And so most wholesalers will never truly go global, but it also allows great partnerships to develop that can do things overseas, and we simply can't. So what is the danger that they see with wholesaling is electronic commerce. Retail EC has fundamentally changed everything forever, but wholesaling not. And the reason why is that wholesaling is predominantly a service industry. They will use the internet for more efficient shipping, better communication, and generally as a way to reduce the total number of errors. Remember the big threes in wholesale. But you will not see electronic commerce. In other words, two wholesalers bidding against each other, because generally wholesalers, once again, are a service industry connected very closely to their partners. There is one, just to go one more before we go on and we start talking about franchising. One of the greater threats is what's known as reverse auctions. And this is where there are online bidding of goods in reverse order. So how does this work? So if I'm a wholesaler and I have a corporation such as Harriman, which is one of the companies I talked about, who needs something to the effect of $80,000 to $100,000 worth of goods, instead of working individually with existing wholesalers, they will send out their all those, they're called script sheets. I can't remember. Anyway, they'll send out those items that they wish to bid on. And so what wholesalers will do is they'll go through the list, give them the discounts, and say, you can buy this entire lot for $120,000. It is published and it is online. It may be a sealed bid or it may not be. Sealed bids are generally done for government agencies, but they would say something like, you have 5 days in which to bid on these goods. And so the bidding starts at $120,000. Another wholesaler comes along and says, well, we can do that, shave some points off for $110,000. And then perhaps that bidder, the original bidder, comes back and says, well, I can do it for $100,000. What'll happen is that the time marks down, you get lower and lower and lower bid prices to the point where, in essence, bid is closed, and that whoever wins, they in essence take the bid. The problem with reverse auctions is they usually call them Dutch auctions, spit it out, David, because they are the ones, Netherlands one that came up with it. The problem with it is that it destroys relationships, which is the core of what wholesaling is built. So anyway, the other things I want you to know about, one other thing in wholesaling, and then we're going to do this. There are two models that are basic now within wholesaling because they are fees, or excuse me, they are services. There are two ways in which these things are priced. How do you price a service? If anyone's had the honor of having their dishwasher fixed for an enormous cost, if you've ever had to have your automobile serviced, you will be given an approximate cost for those particular goods. This is what's known as activity-based costing. Any estimate is built on the approximate number of hours based on the activities required to be able to complete a job. The number one most expensive thing in automobiles today is transmissions. No doubt about it. Replacing a transmission will go anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000, depending on the type of transmission it is. Folks, if I'm dad here, all right? This is your dad talking to you. Look up vehicles, histories on transmissions. It's the first thing. The alloys that are used in engines now that are outstanding. And as long as you replace the oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, I'm 3,000 miles. With fully synthetic oil, your cars will last forever, except the transmissions, okay? And to them, the number one to me is Toyota, number two is Honda. Anyway, shut up then. But if you look at the activities that it requires to replace a transmission in your car, it is enormous. 20 hours or more. These are activity-based costs that are approximations, that are estimates, and usually they go up and not down. The fee-for-service model is basically a trying of a way to fix a cost for a service in which many times you're not particularly sure how it's successful, because services, one of the problems is their intangibility. What is the value between a haircut over at, oh gosh, those super clips, and the cost of a haircut like mine with Tommy Light? The price is about $30. For me, there's no cost. I mean, what it means to me is it's priceless because I get a haircut I like, which is the most important thing. Service models hope to basically connect the service with the value that the consumers have. It can sometimes be a dubious model, but it breaks the pricing model because it assigns the value that the consumers have for that particular good. I'm not going to sport clips. Anyway, fees for services. So not to worry about vertical integration, just realize is that there is also a wave within wholesaling in which the vertical integration, because of large quantities, lends itself towards. And I won't say anything more of that. You're not going to worry about it. So that is chapter seven. And now we're going to talk about franchising, which is like one of my favorite subjects in the whole world. Gives you an idea how sad a life I lead. Let's see, chapter eight. Franchising structures and strategies. Oh, there it is. Okay. Franchising is not started in the United States. Franchising has been around something to the effect of 400 to 500 years. If you even want to look at the East India Tea Company, in which England assigned the rights of an entire country to one corporation, you could see franchising's been around for a long time, but it is something about franchising that lends itself to the American model. Franchising goes on all over the world. We have taken franchising and in many ways made it our own. My former professor, Dr. Vreeland, great guy, great professor. I mean, he was just all that. He was from New York City. He developed and helped multiple franchises to achieve success. He had that he had that funny, despairing way, and he would always say franchising is the best way for anyone with a lot of money and very little brains to make money. Okay. So we can look at practically every, or just about every business that is not local within Boone or anywhere you want to go and say that they mostly take advantage of the franchising structure. I do not know if you know this, but all the automobile dealerships are franchises. 99.9% of all the fast food places is. I love Comeback Shack. It would be a great franchise because it has everything that keys it for success. And although they're not a franchise, every move that they've made has been a right. I mean, they know their target market. They understand where they do best. And I have every confidence that they keep it up. Somebody's going to get smart enough and wave a lot of money in their faces, and they'll eventually go, who knows? So, what is a franchise? What is the nature of what a franchise system is? So, I am a McDonald's. The basic structure of a franchise McDonald's corporate is the manufacturer or the top of the structure of a franchise. The local franchise, the one you see right next to Wells Fargo Bank, is an independent organization. There can be company stores in which McDonald's has their own store out there that they own, but for different reasons, okay? Franchising is a channel structure, basically, that in the minds of the consumer is a vertically integrated market or manufacturer. That is how the end users perceive it. And yet, if you were to drive into the McDonald's get to the window to get your food, you'll see a small little bronze plaque that says operated by such and such corporation with their address and their phone number. Top is what's known as the franchisor. The bottom is known as the franchisee. Franchisors are the upstream manufacturers of a product or the originators of a service. It can be a service. H&R Block is a franchisor and franchisee as well. The franchisee is a separate company that provides all of the marketing channel functions downstream. 10-point question. The unique part of a franchise is the deliberate loss of a separate identity. The key of what is considered a business format franchise is the deliberate loss of an identity. McDonald's franchisor, the McDonald's corporate, they have their own reason and purpose for being in business. They have their own organization structures. A franchisor has their own purposes or ways of being around. A franchisee has their own balance sheet, their own income statement, their own purpose for being in business. But what the franchise structure does is it creates enormous advantages for both sides. And that's why franchisors achieve success, because the odds are not perfect always, but the odds are better for success than they are if they were deliberately separate corporations. The key is the franchisee deliberately loses their identity. We'll talk about two different types of franchises, but named franchises are generally for larger companies, such as a modern Subaru. We know it is a Subaru dealership, but it has its own name. And a business format franchise usually lends itself to smaller things like fast foods, where the process for success is just as important to bring as the brand name itself. So this is franchising. So, two independent corporations, they join forces to perform the functions for each mutual benefit. And for that benefit, franchisees compromise their independence. Now, it's actually not a bad thing, because if things go wrong, the franchisor, the McDonald's, can pick up that corporation, sell it to another potential franchisee, and simply move on. The franchisor corporation, if they make a mistake, they can extricate themselves from the relationship and perhaps go on and do something maybe a little bit better. For McDonald's, what it means for them is they don't have to spend an enormous amount of money to staff, put together, and set up that particular place. The franchisees usually are local. They understand the trade area. They have a good chance of knowing what is successful there and what is not. So it is a mutually beneficial thing. Once the franchisee comes in, they're successful in that given area. It is possible even for the franchisee to sell that to another organization or even sell it back to the franchisor. They turn it into a company-owned organization, and now they have a place to train their management staff. From 2006 to 2014, McDonald's was led, or the CEO of McDonald's originally came from Hamburger U. He started out as a burger flipper. He got his degree while working at McDonald's. He moved his way up to the line and he achieved success and he became CEO. And the first thing he did was go to McDonald's in every state of the union. And of course, larger places, he did more. He wanted to look at each organization and understand it as only a burger flipper could. How to achieve some success. And you know what's the number one thing he found? This is 2007. How do you achieve better results in McDonald's? Better ingredients. It's not magic, folks. It's really not. I mean, the better ingredients, the more people enjoy the food. And the other thing he did was, you know, people like me who just want a cup of coffee and don't enjoy spending 20 minutes in a line at Starbucks, he made a reasonably good cup of coffee. Believe me, reasonable goes a long way, okay? I mean, I love coffee. I enjoy a good cup of coffee. I even enjoy a bad one if I need it, okay? But if it's a reasonably good cup of coffee and it takes me less than 3 minutes, that's a better cup of coffee to me. So that's another thing that he was able to do. The franchisee also reduces the performance ambiguity. You're able to have a greater understanding of how to achieve success downstream, and you can implement those things in a closer way. As I said, it's a separate business, your own balance sheet, your own income statement. It is the fastest form of retailing for the last 100 years, and it will still continue to grow. Not every structure of franchises are the same. Subway. Subway was the fastest growing franchise from 2005 to 2020. One of the main reasons was their starting fee was less than $12,000. And so what that meant is that if I were a mom and pop grocery store, if I had $12,000 and I had a location in my store that I could be able to sell Subway, then I could compete with Walmart, who had their own as well. Subway made a major mistake in 2022 when they stopped daily deliveries. So in other words, it meant the lettuce could be 3 days old. And guess what? People can tell when lettuce is 3 days old. Now they stopped that. They had a revolt among the franchisees, but the damage was done for Subway, unfortunately. Chick-fil-A is interesting. Chick-fil-A, the franchise fee is only $4,500. But it takes 2 years to get a Chick-fil-A franchise. It requires an enormous amount of time investing themselves within a Chick-fil-A organization, and you cannot make more than 50% of your yearly income from something other than Chick-fil-A. You must be invested in the organization, not just financially, but with your whole heart. And they were right. That is what made Chick-fil-A a success. McDonald's, their franchise fee is $1 million, which if you've got $1 million, why are you investing in McDonald's? But McDonald's, of course, is enormously successful as well. There are 8,000 McDonald's in the United States, but the number one franchise is Chick-fil-A because their yearly income is $6.5 million per store versus McDonald's, which is $3 million. Kind of gives you an idea, okay? And McDonald's was a good idea when they steal one, and they're starting to come up with, instead of the drive-up windows, they're doing the drive-up doors. Guess who came up with that idea? Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A was perfect position when the COVID came around because all of their particular ways that they did them perfectly lent themselves to it. DoorDash as well, they have dedicated themselves to being the number one deliverer of DoorDash in the United States. And the way that they do that is they prioritize the online orders, or let's just say they don't prioritize it, but they give it just as much importance as the person in front of them. They have an entirely different team that is ready there to help the DoorDash. I've had DoorDash to my house in less than 15 minutes. And it's just amazing. That's how they do franchises, and that's how they do it right. And so that is the franchising structure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits to franchisees, and my throat's starting to close up. And then we're going to leave, and we'll come back on Thursday, and we'll run through some of the better parts of the stuff, okay? So if I'm a franchisee, why would I be willing to spend 9% of every dollar that I bring in and give it to my franchisor first? Because in the franchisor-franchisee relationship, I pay them first before I even pay the light bills or myself. But what are they? Well, a franchisee in building a corporation is there more than just to start a business, but also for a certain personal fulfillment. There's a desire for success, and that desire perfectly lends itself in the franchising arrangement. It is a perfect category. The franchisor, top of them, for corporations who have never done this before, what they basically say is, no problem, if you've never had a business, we'll teach you how. And so what a franchise does is it builds a business format. It tells them in explicable terms exactly how to focus on success, because we've done it all over. So when I give my money away to the franchisor, there are three things that I have that help me to succeed. A couple of things that are important to note. The franchise relationship is not about how to build a business as much as it is how to run a business. Run the business for success. Anybody can build a business, not everyone can keep it alive for decades. Franchising is about running a business. It is a process and not an event. They have solutions to all problems. When you're having difficulty as an organization, guess what? There's probably a dozen others that are having the same problem. The franchisor are basically an archive of all of the issues that have happened, and generally they have a solution before you even think about it. And so what are the three benefits that you get as a franchisee? So you got this. The first is a startup package. Anybody want to guess how much the property that the McDonald's sits on is worth? Whatever you guess, it's probably going to be a little, it's about $2 million. Anybody want to guess how much the Wendy's property is worth? You hit it. Very good. $4 million. That's how much it's worth. I have heard that that particular Wendy's is the most profitable Wendy's in Western Carolina. The reason why it's 2 stories big. Okay. That a corner property is gold. All right. What are the 3 most important things in retail? Anybody ever tell you? 3 most important things? Location, location, and location. That's where success is, okay? So the first thing that a McDonald's will do is that they will help you find the particular property that will help you achieve success, and they will buy the property. The store itself is owned by the franchisee. The property is owned by the franchisor. The two largest owners of real estate in the United States are McDonald's and Walmart, other than the federal government. McDonald's, when you become their franchise, you don't have to worry about where's the best place to done it. They've already done it. They've ground through their own computer simulations. They know the best place for success, and they'll take care of it. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, because of the way their franchises work, location is just as big, but location for enterprises generally are in, local city areas and not by airports. Because Enterprise's mission and their basic package is they need, or it's a vehicle for individuals who need a car more than 5 to 7 days, especially if it needs to have work on it. It's also a great package, especially if you're making long distance trips, but they are where their people are, or their customers are, generally in suburban areas. So the first thing that they do is site selection. They find the best place, or they'll even buy that place. The next is, as soon as you open a McDonald's, you have a clientele that you do not have to build. You know what a McDonald's is. And we've seen what a splash when a good brand will come through here, just how busy it can get. I can imagine what this place will be like if we ever get an Aldi. That's not a franchise, but just a name. It's going to draw people like flies. Brand name is valuable. For some inexplicable reason, the company that owned the Pizza Hut here 5 years ago decided that they weren't going to give Pizza Hut a break, and they kicked them out. Now the Pizza Hut, where the Pizza Hut was, is now a gas station for Harris Teeter. But as soon as the Pizza Hut came back and it took up that little half location, they didn't have to worry about people coming. People are here. The last thing that the startup package does is that it gives you the economies of scale from the word go. As soon as you say, I own a McDonald's franchise, could you give me a loan, please? The banks are pulling their pens out saying, please sign. You have big shoulders on your side. It also means that when it comes to trade references or credit references, there's none better. Because they're also able to get those startup things out of the way for you, they're also able to sell you things at a substantial discount because you're McDonald's for all intents and purposes. You become a preferred status with the providers of your goods. You become a preferred provider when you call AT&T and say, hey, this is McDonald's. Can I buy stuff from you? They'll break their legs trying to get this. And so these are the number one things that help you achieve success. They find the place that you want to sell at. They bring a brand name so that you're not having to build a clientele. And then, because they are a franchisor that pools the demand together, you get the economies of scale that you would in a retailer wholesaler kind of relationship. All right, running out of voice. Let's get out of here. I will see you Thursday, and we will finish up discussion about franchising. Thank you.